Hey, what is going on, everybody? East Tactics here, and I'm finally back at it with another video. In fact, this is going to be an M2C explained video talking specifically about the shock standoffs from different manufacturers, and of course M2C is in the mix. So first and foremost, I have to say thank you to my wife. This is the reason why I am back in the shop. You see, it's freezing cold out here in my garage. And so for Christmas, my wife picked me up this really cool space heater / wall-mounted heating source for my RC pit. And I love it. You can basically turn it on and off right here with a remote. And it's got 500 watt power, 1000 watt power, and 1500 watt power. Right now it's cranking at the 1500 watt. And sitting in here under this thing, even though it's winter and it's freezing cold outside and my garage is freezing cold, I'm in a little nested bubble of warmth. So anyway, now that I've got this, I'm just like, I feel a little bit more excited about getting back in and creating some more videos. All right, guys, so what is it that I want to talk about today? This video, is specifically about the M2C Shock Standoffs and the difference that they make between, what Mitch and Avery do over there at M2C versus what you can find in the industry as far as the exact differences. As you guys know, what I like to do is go into the details about why you would want to pick up a certain type of product, what makes it better, and this is a specific in-depth dive on the shock standoffs. So first and foremost, let's take a look at these right here. This is the V3, V4 stock shock standoffs. You might even find these on the V5. So I think the EXB, and might even earlier variations of the EXB might still have these ones, because this EXB upgrade sort of came a little bit later. But if you did pick up an EXB recently, then it will come with these EXB shock standoffs. So first and foremost, the first thing you can see when you look at this is a two-piece system, and basically this long M3 screw goes through. All right, see there how I screwed it in? So this screws in, there's a gap in there which provides a pretty high level of weakness, and then this goes all the way through and pops out. And these things have bent. A lot of extreme bashing and a lot of even regular small bashing has bent these shock standoffs. You'll also notice here that when this pops all the way through, then it just uses the M3 nut on the end. And the important thing to note is that this style shape allows you to put these shock shrouds, which basically acts as the washer for the M3 nut, because the M3 nut otherwise would be too small and your whole shock system would just slide off. But this plastic piece butts up against this little M3 nut and prevents everything from sliding off. So, but important is that the fact that you can use these shock shrouds are actually extremely important, especially in the front of your vehicle, because these will protect, they go a long way to protect your shocks themselves from damaging your body, considering your body completely covers your front shock tower. So anyway, you do want these also in a bad wreck. These shock shrouds are extremely important to protect the top of your shocks. You can see, how badly this stuff gets dinged up, and a bad landing is gonna break the shock standoff here pretty easily, and these shock shrouds go a long way in protecting your shocks from damage. So you definitely want to incorporate this piece, which is what I wanted to. And the reason why I bring that up is because this brand right here, the Techno, now you'll notice I went with these Technos because at the time, over a year ago, I couldn't find a shock standoff that had 4 millimeters going through right here. And this right here is the clutch spot for strength. You want this piece through the actual shock tower to be 4 millimeters, and it literally doubles the strength of your shock just from that alone. So I specifically searched for a shock standoff that had that, and I found these Techno 5527s. Now the downside of the Techno 5527s is you cannot use one of these shock shrouds on here. You end up having to put a washer on here after you basically slid your shock to this point right here. So that's sort of the downside, is you cannot use the shock shroud. Now you do get this 4 millimeter. Now notice that if you look closely, you can see that this is actually slightly bent. So we go from 4 millimeters down to 3 millimeters. Okay, now let's move over to the EXB shock standoff. Now these are all made out of metal. This is obviously that Arrma makes their vehicles in China, so it's funny that the guys at M2C call this stuff Chinesium, because there's nowhere on the websites, even on Arrma's website, that will tell you what type of metal this is. And so the only thing we can really do is just call it metal from China. So not the greatest quality. Obviously bashing has shown this stuff to bend and break, and the 3 millimeters, obviously that's a weakness. Anyway, this particular brand, the Techno, this is obviously a steel, thicker here, 4 millimeter, 3 millimeter here. Have no clue what brand or what hardness of metal or type of metal this is. But I will say these did pretty good. They lasted for quite a long time. That's a mild bend, and this was off of a very bad landing that actually broke my shock cap. So anyway, now let's move over to the EXB. You'll notice both the rear and the front are M3. So you have an M3 nut here with a flanged back end, but you have M3, M3, and M3. Everything is M3 thickness. This piece right here on the EXB heavy duty is M3 thickness, which is a massive decrease in strength when it comes to hard bashing. So even the EXB falls short. Now, let's hop over to M2C. Now M2C, we know that this is a 4340 heat treated aircraft grade steel. They actually did testing, and they made this out of different metals to find out which one was going to be the best for the shock standoff. And they settled on 4340. They decided to use this specific steel for the shock standoffs, and this is in the research and development from M2C. You're not going to find the manufacturers going through and spending the time and the money to do the type of stuff that M2C does. Now the other thing you're going to notice is that it's M4 thickness on this end all the way through. This is a single piece, and it's M4 thickness on this end as well. Both ends just have a regular M4 nut that goes over it, which will hold the shock on, and you can incorporate the shock standoff on both of these styles. So there you have it. This is basically, an ode to M2C and all of their parts. Every part that they make, whether it be, an outdrive, a dog bone, whatever, they go through the testing and they make the products front to back top quality, and they take into account the thicknesses. They actually found that this 3 millimeter thick insertion point is a massive weakness, because they have testers that go the length, and they put 4 millimeter here on both ends all the way through. So that right there is the difference between M2C, the EXB heavy duty, an off-brand Techno, and your stock V4, V3 shock standoffs. Another brand that I can think of that makes a shock standoff is Hot Racing. What's interesting about Hot Racing is they do go with the 4 millimeter thick here, which is an important caveat, but theirs on this end is still 3 millimeters, and the metal they use is an S2 metal. It is comparable to the 4340, but M2C's got it in the bag when it comes to the top grade metal being used for these shock standoffs. Anyway guys, I do have a few tips that I want to recommend when you are actually installing these on to the shock tower. So M2C does provide the exact drill bit that you need, and this drill bit goes through perfectly. It's tight. You're gonna find that you're gonna need to drill this thing through both directions. So if you were to just drill through this one direction, you're gonna find it's a little bit more difficult and it's a bit of a tight fit. But then if you go through the other direction afterward, then you're gonna find that it slides through much easier. As far as the placement of where, I mean, you could drill a hole through all 3 of these so that they're ready if you want to be able to change things on the fly. However, from stock, the shocks are in the middle one, and so I'm just gonna keep mine set up with the stock format. Like so. Kind of just move the drill back and forth a few times. You'll find that it slides through a lot easier. Go ahead and twist it through. So at this point, just take your M4 nut and then you'll notice as I tighten this, it'll suck it down. I'm just going to use my shock pliers here on this end. .9/32, which works. I'm not sure if that's the exact size for M4, but as far as a close enough fit to hold it and, you know, do the job, 9/32. So, okay, now let's go ahead and just do the next one, quick like. Ideally, it would be recommended to put this in a vise with a solid, you know, just so there's no movement, you know, like me, I'm moving back and forth, and the small movements that you make right here do sort of kind of make the hole, I mean, a hair's breadth, like bigger. And so you do end up losing a little bit of, at least on this one I'm noticing, I mean, I was able to push this one in 100%, which is not a big deal, but ideally I liked this one how it was tighter. I actually felt like I probably held it better. So the straighter you can go through, the better. Just keep that in mind. Metal shavings, gotta love them. All right, well there you have it. M2C Shock Standoffs 4340 steel and the 4mm thickness throughout installed on your vehicle. All right, guys, that's it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching my material, getting the details, in-depth details on this project, the M2C Explained series. Stay tuned as I continue to move throughout this vehicle. All right, guys, if you have not subscribed to my channel, hit that subscription button. And if you would, please hit the like button on this video. I always appreciate that. And again, sorry for the delay on some of the videos. Like I said, winter came here and my workshop just got too frigid for me. So big thanks to my wife for buying me this awesome space heater. And I will catch you guys on the next video. East Tactics, out.
Wait, I thought you were
Woohoo!
best yet. Oh, first one! We made it all the way.